Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Fame. This is Al Gilbert, your Chief Listening Officer at advisoryoptions.net. I love listening to interesting people, and my guest today is Bruce McIndoe. He is, as many of us remember in the travel industry, the founder and president of iJet, then World Aware, and now he's president of McIndoe Risk Advisory Services. Welcome, Bruce.
Good, welcome.
Happy New Year to you.
Almost. Yep. Counting down the hours.
Yeah, what I say is happy, thank God, New Year. So I always start at the beginning, Bruce. Where did you grow up, and what were your parents' professions?
I could probably use up the whole time talking about where I grew up, but I was born in San Antonio, Texas. And my claim to fame whenever I go to Texas is I'm usually the only native-born Texan at the table. But I only lived there for about 3 months.
Okay.
My dad was military medical, so he was finishing his residency, went back to Philly briefly. My real youth was growing up in San Bernardino, California. My dad was at Norton Air Force Base. But prior to the second grade, moved to London, England. So my youth and early education was actually in London until sixth grade, or I finished sixth grade. And then in the seventh grade, we moved to Biloxi, Mississippi. So that was, so from a good, bloody good English accent to deep South was quite a change. That was in August of 1969, 2 weeks before Hurricane Camille.
Oh, all right. Well, that's nice. That's a nice welcome. Regarding your profession, let me ask you a chicken or egg question. Did you get into security first and then travel, or vice versa?
No, I was totally in security. I was in the intelligence community since 1983, so until 99. So yeah, it was security and support to military operations is what got me ultimately shifted as I came out and ended up supporting the travel industry.
And why the travel? That must have been a very prescient industry that at that time. Why travel? Why'd you get into travel?
It was actually interesting, and of course, '99, nobody cared very much about anything due to global security and geopolitics. So, of course, after 9/11, they got more religion. But I was actually focused on intelligence as the core kind of capability that we had. That most companies, private sector companies, just did not have access to high quality intel. And so I built the first real commercial government grade 24/7 intelligence production operation. And we acquired Kroll's unit and then ultimately Pinkerton's information services and became the premier provider of continuous intelligence reporting to companies ultimately worldwide.
So you founded iJet, which later became World Aware, or you acquired World Aware. Is that right?
No, we just rebranded.
You rebranded, and then that was acquired by Garda World of Canada
in July. Yep.
In July, then now you've got your own practice.
That's why I'm doing my thing now. So.
Now, ISOS or International SOS has stayed pretty, I guess, independent. Why is that, do you think?
They are probably the largest private medical assistance company globally. So their business is in global assistance, and so it's a fairly low margin business. Obviously, a lot of risk vis-a-vis helping people with medical consultations and evacuation and those kinds of things. And I think a lot of companies shy away from jumping into that, as far as buying them and trying to acquire them. Mm-hmm. And they are a fairly, large company. They'd be equivalent size to, Garda World or Securitas or Allied Universal or any of the big security companies.
So they're almost too big to acquire.
I'm not going to say too big because Garda now Allied acquired G4S, yeah. multi-billion-dollar deal. I just think it's a big take for little margin.
Fair enough. Your new company, McIndoe Risk Advisory, on the LinkedIn description, it says continuous risk management. Is that a value prop that other companies don't offer? What is continuous risk management?
Yeah, so we're working with companies to kind of change how they deal with kind of the dynamics of the world, right? And the key thing is most companies, business continuity and emergency management and even their travel risk management is really episodic, right? They deal with a problem, they'll do a risk assessment, they'll do some mitigation and move on. And if the threat environment changes, they're very slow at adapting to that. And so what we're doing with continuous risk management is basically saying we're going to sense that environment. So if the kidnapping risk in Mozambique goes up, you're immediately looking at, okay, what assets do I have in Mozambique? What do I need to do to counter that increase in threat to minimize risk, right? So you're doing that on an ongoing basis. If there is an incident, like a bombing in Nashville, in the early mornings of Christmas morning, you're immediately aware of, what facilities, what suppliers, what people may be impacted. And then those people are notified so they can take action to deal with whatever that particular incident was. So all of that's just going on every minute of every day, keeping the company, the organization completely informed of any time there is potential or actual impact to their assets.
So in my mind of analogies, it's a little bit like having a smoke and fire alarm on all the time versus just turning it on when you're cooking in the kitchen.
Or turning it off.
Or turning it off, yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, good. So COVID-19, is that a continuous risk to be managed?
That is a continuous risk for every individual on the planet.
And have corporations learned from 2020 and preparing for the next possible pandemic, or do you think if they just get past this, they'll be okay?
So that's also what we're doing with clients is we're helping them actually say, look, you brought all this capability together to deal with this issue of COVID-19. Why disband these task forces? That's the structure you should have every day, is these groups working together, dealing with issues, so business continuity, emergency management, security, risk, they should all be working together. They don't need to report together, but they should be a unified force. And so that's what we're working with clients to actually help them not only do that, but also work in a distributed environment to achieve integrated risk with continuous risk management as the engine.
And where does the corporate travel department and travel management company fit in this puzzle?
So the big part of those on the personnel side, so we talk about people risk management. And part of that is, of course, travel risk management when they're in the travel modality, right? Or if they're on long-term assignment, then expat risk management. But we really look at people risk management. But the most fundamental thing that you need to know about your people is where in the hell are they? And that's especially true right now during COVID because people are working from home, but the reality is they're not at home. They're at their parents' house, taking care of them, or they've decided, well, I don't have to go in the office, so why hang out in New York City? I'm going to go out to New Jersey and hang out there. Or I had an individual who went to Ireland because their daughter was having a baby, and the company had no idea where their people actually were, right? And so the travel department and the travel program does, keeps awareness, at least from declared movement, i.e. booking a trip, that they have a better handle on where their people are.
But they wouldn't know where their people are on their personal travels if they did go to a wedding in Ireland or a funeral in Texas.
So this technology solutions that WorldAware and others have now is we have what we call location awareness. And that is through the mobile app, we basically maintain awareness of kind of what city are you in, roughly, kind of basically about 1.5 kilometer area. So we're not tracking with any great precision, but if I move from Annapolis and I go to Baltimore or I go to Philadelphia, at least the company will know that I'm in Baltimore or in Philly and not in Annapolis. So
Okay.
that's how we're kind of getting that level of awareness.
Okay. When I was selling for the TMCs, one of the big value props that we offered was duty of care. And, I think I'm a decent enough salesperson, but a lot of companies would sort of meet that issue with a shrug. They would say, oh, well, either we have everyone's cell phone number so we can call them if we think there's a problem, or B, we don't travel overseas very much. I think that attitude might have changed a little bit.
It's changed, I would say, 180 degrees right now. Two reasons, especially most, of course, North American U.S. companies travel in the U.S. And largely prior to essentially this year, there was not a lot of angst about, traveling around the U.S. But now with COVID, they all want to know about, well, what's going on? What are the requirements in the destination? That kind of thing. But the other is when we had nationwide, 600 and some cities in the United States had some level of civil unrest around the whole Black Lives Matter movement or challenges that we had. And so now it became more of a reality that not only the people that are traveling to Chicago needed to know that, there was a protest planned for that night or the next day or that moment, but also the local the local people in Chicago, right? So it really has promoted the need for this people risk management, all your people all the time, getting the same support that a traveler would going to Chicago, which is, near real-time alerts and a assistance number that they can call to get help now is afforded to all personnel, not just if they're traveling.
Got it. The other argument I would make with them was the subject of liability. In Europe, duty of care is a very much a bigger point of liability. And I would suggest to them that when people were traveling just within the U.S. on their dollar, on their order, on their business directive, if they couldn't account for someone in a particular city during a moment of crisis, they were legally liable. Was I speaking out of turn, or has anyone ever been sued for that?
So there have been case law, and there has been some settlements that are, fairly large. So people do definitely in Europe have a better sense of that. I think, again, it comes down to experience, right? And, again, in the US, people feel relatively safe, and they are relatively safe. When you're traveling around in Europe, you're actually traveling. If I'm going from London to Paris, it's like going from, Boston to New York or Boston to Philly. You're actually going through multiple nation states. You have different, profiles of those countries, East European versus whatever. So yeah, there is a lot more sensitivity to safety, security, duty of care there, especially like with the Manslaughter Act in the UK, that you can penetrate right to the actual named executive and bring them in, in a legal proceeding as far as negligence. So,
Have you been? Are you aware of any such negligence suits in the United States?
what I have found, and I have actually been an expert witness, did more of it prior, not much lately, but what I find is that everything that I've traced has always been settled out of court. And so there's very little kind of case law that has bubbled to actually documentation that companies are just writing checks, settling it, and moving on. So,
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about working from home versus traveling. It has the risk, what I call the digital risk, like phishing and whatnot, from risen as a result of that.
across like almost every dimension, cyber risk is larger with people working at home than in a facility where the company has much greater control over the devices and the security profile of those devices, and also the other systems that you're interacting with. When you're at home, you're relying on, did you update your router in the last 6 years with the latest software? No. Are you using the VPN? You're supposed to. who else is on your computer and has your login, on and on, what's loaded on your software, what viruses are on your computer, your home computer. So a lot of companies that are stepping up, you'll have a corporate laptop, but now you're plugging a corporate laptop into your home network. Well, how protected is that? So it's just a downward spiral of challenges for information security officers to manage this tremendous distribution of devices on networks that they don't control.
Come on, Bruce, you're scaring me.
It's just the fact of life.
When pre-COVID and certainly post-COVID, when you travel personally, how do you protect yourself and your data?
I do two things. One is my laptop, I don't store anything of any significance on my laptop. I have it on the cloud, and I don't keep it on the device. The device is I have an encrypted disk, so if it is stolen and somebody tries to pull the disk out, access it, they're going to be foiled. So that's the fundamental piece of it. So minimizing my information footprint that's on the device, and then protecting what's on there. The other is I use a digital persona when I'm traveling, or anytime I'm on the network. I don't use my own actual personal information. So I have separate, accounts. I have a separate virtual address that I use for, doing things online. I use a credit card that's only used online. So if it's compromised, I don't care. So that's, and I've actually presented and written some stuff with GBTA on digital persona. I was actually getting ready to present last year at conference. And of course, we never got there. So hopefully I'll get a chance this year. So when I hear that, Marriott was breached or whatever, I don't care. Any data they get, it's disposable to me. It's not my home address. It's not my cell phone number. It's not and if the credit card's compromised, no big deal. I'll just get another one.
Okay, well, good advice.
Mm-hmm.
Have you flown since March or April?
I have.
Not internationally, or have you?
No, just U.S.
So, what's your opinion of the following, that if traveling internationally, business class is safer because the seats are wider, they're further apart, there might be some pod divisions between them. Do you think business class is safer against COVID than an economy?
I would say marginally.
Just marginally?
But the bottom line is air travel is probably, and I would say not probably, air travel is the lowest risk segment of your trip. Okay. So, you're talking about, I think the MIT study put it at like 1 in 750,000 chance of, dying as a result of contracting COVID on an airplane. When you get into a vehicle in the United States every day, it's 1 in 40,000 every day. So the highest risk segment of your trip, regardless of what you're doing, tends to be riding in an automobile, either driving or as a passenger. So that's number one. On the plane, your risk comes down to not so much the plane or where you are in the plane, who's sitting near you. That's what matters. Okay. And so if I'm in business class and somebody's sitting next to me or across the aisle from me, then I have a higher risk of potentially, getting enough virons, enough virus particles to be infected. And that's why wearing masks on the airplane is so critical, just like it is out running around, but especially when you're in a closed environment. And I can tell you, when I flew on a flight out to Utah, the guy sitting me, I was in business class, and he milked his drink for like 2 hours, not wearing his mask. That kind of stuff, and it's is very frustrating. You can have your drink, leave your mask on, and you're helping everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have not been on a plane since March, and no great rush to do so. Let me end up with one future light question. As travel recovers in 2021 and 2022, in what ways do you think business travel has changed forever relative to risk and security?
From a risk and security perspective, I think the investments that have been made in touchless technology are going to continue. So all of what we've seen to reduce, human interaction and human touch is going to continue to be our way of life on that. I'm guessing the cleanliness stuff will trail off over time. It has been pretty amazing, being out there in hotels and airplanes and seeing just really being clean. It's noticeably different. So I don't, but my guess is that is not going to sustain itself in the long run. Yeah, I think from that perspective, I think the only thing that I perceive changing in travel will be the amount of travel. We're going to see hybrid meetings, I think, forever. People are, weighing not just, COVID, but post-COVID, it'll be travel time, expense, and having the ability to participate in conferences virtually will provide greater access and greater diversity versus having to cough up the funds to be there in person. So I see that continuing forever.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Well, Bruce, thank you for your time. We've been spending 15 minutes, probably a little bit more, with Bruce McIndoe, the president of McIndoe Risk Advisory. He is the travel sage, the security sage of the travel industry.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
Thank
quite
you.
a fame.
That's quite a fame. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, sir. Take care.